very, very excited to be here today speaking with all of you. I was telling Dr. Berry before that I actually don't get the opportunity to talk with students very often. We occasionally bring undergraduate students into my office at APA, but we're more sharing a larger view of what my office offers. And what I'll be talking about today is teaching high school psychology and then other careers in psychology. And I've been at APA now for 8 years, a little over 8 years. And I've spent most of that time working in the education directorate with high school psychology teachers, which is a very exciting area. Just wonderful teachers, very challenging, very fun. And just to say a couple words about my career path, I was an undergraduate psychology major at Furman. Had a really terrific experience as an undergraduate student. Just really enjoyed the classes that I took. Had good relationships with professors, and I've actually stayed in touch with a few professors since I've left. Have worked at 2 nonprofits since undergrad, and both of them have had a psychology component, of course APA, but also the Council on Undergraduate Research had a psychology division. And I just always loved working in psychology, and I got an MBA because I was interested in nonprofit work. So might go back to school, might get a master's in psychology or maybe a doctorate someday, but I hope one of the things that you'll see is that there are options with a bachelor's degree, and you can actually work in psychology. I know some of you will go on to master's programs or doctorate programs, but I think psychology is a wonderful area to work in, and I've really enjoyed working at APA. And so I hope you'll learn something today and find it as interesting as I do. Quickly, what I'll be talking about, high school psychology, which is again the area that I work in at APA. Share a little bit of career information, including some career fields that are growing and expected to grow over the next 10 years. I have some APA resources for undergraduate students that I'll share. And hopefully there'll be time at the end for questions and answers, but please feel free to ask any at any time during the talk. A quick note about working at APA. The APA's mission is to advance the creation, communication, and application of psychological knowledge to benefit society and improve people's lives. APA is the largest association of psychologists in the world. There are over 150,000 members and affiliates, which include student affiliates and high school teachers. There are about 500 to 600 employees, I think close to 600 employees. And it's a great place to work. I've worked there, as I said, for 8 years. Very supportive coworkers, good benefits. They really emphasize being a psychologically healthy workplace. So try to really provide for the employees and make us enjoy working there. It's very diverse, the employees, it's just a very diverse group of people. And I really enjoyed working there, and it's a good place to work, and I'll return to that at the end. So the first area I'm going to talk about is high school psychology, which again is my focus at APA. I would guess that probably many of you, or a number of you, took high school classes when you were in, or psychology classes when you were in high school. Did anyone take high school psychology? Yeah. And did anyone have a really positive experience? Hopefully maybe encourage you to become a major. And maybe a less good experience? Did anyone have class that maybe they didn't enjoy quite as much? And any reflections on either of the classes that you took, whether it was AP or IB? Anything that you remember from undergrad, or from your high school class? Anyone?
I remember it was mostly stuff that we teach as not being entirely relevant anymore. So a lot of Freud, Piaget, stuff like that that I don't really consider to be relevant anymore.
Anyone else? So Many people, I think especially my age and older, often aren't aware that they teach psychology in high school. And when I talk to people and tell them what I do, a frequent response is, oh, they must have just started teaching that because they didn't teach it when I was in school. And first point is that psychology has actually been taught in high school for over 180 years, which of course predates experimental psychology by about 4.5 decades. But classes that emphasize mental health started appearing in high schools around 1830. So I'm just going to go through some kind of overall points about high school psychology. There are approximately 7,000 high school psychology teachers in the United States. It's an approximate number. It's pretty hard to actually get a concrete number of current teachers. But about 7,000. High school is also taught internationally. High school psychology is taught internationally, so they're also international teachers. Most of these teachers, which is interesting, are social studies teachers. High school psychology is often in the social studies department of a high school. Many of them also teach history or English. And of course, we know that psychology is a science, and APA has had a push for a number of years to make psychology a core STEM discipline. And so there's a little bit of a tension between it's a science, but it's taught in the social studies department by a social studies teacher frequently. And another interesting thing with this is the issue of teacher training. Many teachers might have more of a history background or a larger social studies background than a background in psychology. And so that's one of APA's interests, is really getting more students who have studied psychology to consider teaching high school psychology, because we really need people who know the background, who know psychology, and be teaching that to future generations of psychologists. And high school psychology is also an elective. And so that, again, you can have teachers, and maybe history teachers, who might not know the discipline as well, and so they might be more apt to talk about the more pop psychology that, of course, APA, that's not what we want to be being taught. So it's an interesting field. Advanced placement psychology is a very popular course. This past spring, there were almost 199,000 AP psychology exams taken. That made it the 6th largest AP exam out of about 33. And we actually just passed biology last year. AP psychology was bigger than AP biology in terms of the number of exams that were taken. International Baccalaureate psychology is also taught. This past spring, there were over 16,000 exams taken worldwide, and there were 10,000 exams taken in the United States. And that number is probably going to go up because people do retake tests in the fall. And then every year, there are about 1 million students that graduate from high school having taken a psychology course. And we get that from numbers from the College Board and the Department of Education that say that between 27 and 30% of high school students graduate having taken a psychology class. And that number includes regular classes. So you have AP, IB, and regular courses. So you can tell this is a very popular subject. High school students really enjoy learning about psychology. It applies to their everyday lives. But there are also these interesting things dealing with, again, teacher training, the fact that it's an elective, and the social studies science issue. Make it, I think, a very interesting area to be working in. So why is this important? Why does APA care about this? 3 main reasons. One is that high school classes can promote psychological literacy, so having students and citizens that know about psychology, they're psychologically literate, have a well-defined vocabulary and basic knowledge about psychology. They can apply psychological principles to work, relationships, and the broader community. And then they can be insightful and reflective about their own mental and behavioral processes. High school classes can also educate the public about what psychology is. It could be the first, it likely is the first, and possibly the only psychology class that a student might take. If a student maybe doesn't go on to college or if they choose another major. It could be their one exposure to psychology. And then teachers obviously work with the students, but then the students go home and talk to their parents and talk to their siblings. And teachers also work with the community. So it's really a front line of this is what psychology is to the public. And it also promotes the pipeline of students into the discipline. So hopefully we might attract students who maybe are interested in science and might not know that much about psychology, and they might take a high school class and get interested in it and then decide to pursue it. A brief history of high school psychology. I just have 2 quick slides on this. Started again in about 1830 is when the classes first appeared. They were initially kind of more mental and moral philosophy classes, and they were typically taught in college. And so these focused on religion and intellect and the will. And again, we're mostly college level, but they did appear in high schools. In the last 2 decades of the century, more high schools started to offer psychology classes, but again, it was still mostly in college. John Leary was actually quoted about reasons why students should take psychology in high school. About it may have an immediate intellectual help as well as save much waste on mental and even moral force. Psychology is needed to meet the dawning self-consciousness of the student. So I wasn't aware that John Dewey had spoken about psychology and why it's important for students to learn at such an early age. In the early 1900s, the focus in the high school turned to more mental hygiene, which had to do with promoting and maintaining mental health. The 3 things mentioned there, self-understanding, getting along with others, personality development, and adjustment, are what high school students said was the most valuable thing from their psychology classes. So psychology classes, early 1900s, really focused more on personal adjustment more than the psychological science that we know. High school classes grew in the 1960s. And then in the 1970s, 2 things happened that were notable. One is that the National Science Foundation began to provide funding for high school science teachers to take summer workshops, and psychology teachers started making use of these funds. And also APA went to the College Board for the first time and asked that an AP psychology class be added. The College Board program started in 1954. And College Board said no. They said high school classes are really mostly about personal adjustment, and it's not the science that's being taught at the college level. And APA and APA members and others kept pursuing the College Board to add this AP psychology class. And in 1988, so almost 18 years after they started this campaign, College Board said, yes, we'll start it. First AP psych exam was given in 1992. To just under 4,000 students. This past May, again, almost 199,000 students took the AP psychology exam, which is an average yearly increase of over 20% and almost 15% over the last 5 years. And that's the growth from one year to another. It's really been pretty remarkable. And this is, again, the exam volume from the first year the psychology exam was offered up until this past spring. And it's just a pretty remarkable growth. I think AP Statistics is the only one that has a faster growth than that, but the College Board has said that this is pretty remarkable. Again, out of all 33 subjects. As I mentioned earlier, IB psychology is also taught. They're more difficult to find out information, especially historical information about the IB course. But here are just some numbers from the past 5 years. And again, you can see every year the number of exams is growing. And again, also regular classes. APA started being involved with high school psychology in the mid-1930s. In 1970, the first high school teacher joined APA. And then in 1992, which is the first year that the AP Psych exam started, APA formed a group called TOPS, which is the Teachers of Psychology in Secondary Schools. And TOPS is both an APA governance group, so it gives high school teachers a voice within APA. And it's also a membership organization. It's part of APA, so when a high school teacher joins the APA as a teacher affiliate, they become a TOPS member. This is a lot of text, but this is from our association rules about what TOPS was created to do, more the governance group, the committee. It was created to promote the highest standards in the teaching of psychology, to promote professional development for high school psychology teachers, to increase professional identity and promote leadership for high school psychology teachers, to facilitate networking, to encourage recruitment and retention of students, particularly minorities, into the field, to enhance the visibility and legitimacy of high school psychology within APA and with other members of the psychological community, and then to recommend the appropriate response advocacy, education policy, and certification issues that impact psychology teachers. So this was the big picture of when this group was formed in the early 90s, what the intent was. And my job at APA is I'm the staff liaison to the TOPS committee, and then my office, we facilitate all of the work that goes to meet these goals. So really trying to promote the high quality teaching of psychology in high school. We currently have over 2,000 APA high school teacher affiliates, and they come from all 50 states in about 50 countries. The website is listed down there. And then Marissa Sarabando was one of the teacher affiliates who was on the committee a few years ago. Just this really wonderful teacher. And for the 10-year anniversary of TOPS, this was a quote from her about TOPS's mission of serving the needs of high school psychology teachers is always at the forefront of all initiatives and program proposals. As the popularity of psychology continues to increase, so does the need to equip high school psychology teachers with the most helpful resources. And again, it goes back with who's teaching psychology now. And if you have people out there who don't have a strong background in psychology, what APA wants to do is to be sure that they have the best resources to be accurately teaching psychology to high school students. And so all of the work that we do is to provide resources and to promote the teaching of psychological science. Any questions right now? About anything? So I'm going to go over just quickly some of the resources that we do offer for high school teachers. We do unit lesson plans. We have about 20 of those that are out, and each of them provides a content outline and activities and resources for high school teachers to use in their classes. So we have ones on biological basis of behavior and social psychology and health and stress and health promotion. And again, for teachers who might not have as strong of a background as we want, the unit lesson plans are very helpful because they can use that and accurately, we hope, teach the class. One of the most important documents that we have are our national standards for high school psychology curricula. Those came out first in the late 90s, and they've been revised twice. The last revision just was done about 2 months ago. And again, it's really the most important document that we have. We hope that all 50 states, the boards of education, will adopt our standards. And it's really a pretty interesting document. It's made up of domains, and then it's kind of a hierarchy. So you have domains, standard areas, content standards, and performance standards. And it's just a way of structuring the content to teach in the high school class. And I don't know if you can see it at the back, but this is a kind of a graphical representation of what the standards are. So you have 7 domains. And so you have scientific inquiry, and then biopsychological development and learning, sociocultural context, cognition, individual variations, and then applications of psychological science. And then under each of those domains are more kind of clusters of content. So if you look at the scientific inquiry, perspectives in psychological science, and then research methods, measurement, and statistics. And the way that the standards are done is any high school class that's taught, whether it's regular, IB, or AP, this document says you have to include something from every one of these domains. So even if it's a one semester regular psychology class, and the teacher may want to be teaching more, might be inclined to teach more pop psychology that we really don't want to be taught, this document says you really can't do that because you have to talk about biopsychology, you have to talk about development, you have to talk about sociocultural context. And it's just a very nice way that the content in a high school class is portrayed. And it's been interesting from a staff perspective because what's happened with this, it's one of the only documents that people can look at and say that's defining what psychology is. And so a lot of different groups and interests within APA, people really want their voice heard within this APA, within the standard structure, even when sometimes it's really more appropriate for graduate level education, not for introducing 16-year-olds for the first time about what psychology is. But I think it's a pretty elegant structure that the working group came up with. And then this is just one page from the standards, and I don't know how clear that is. But you can see content standards, it's not very clear, but the one is development of psychology as an empirical science, and then major subfields within psychology. And then, again, under each of those, you can see more ways that students can express what they've learned. And again, again, just kind of going over some quick things that we do to promote high school teaching. We have Excellence in Teaching Awards that we give every year. We give up to 3 of those. These are our 2011 winners. And it's interesting because 2 of them have PhDs in psychology. So again, we do have the one side that it might be someone without a strong background, but then you also have people who've gone on to study psychology and then really want to be working with high school students. So 2 of them have PhDs. And the woman in the red actually teaches in Hong Kong, in an international school there. We do competitions for high school students. Every year we have an essay competition and students write an essay and then we give scholarships to the winners. For the first time this year we asked them to add a poster, so a visual poster about psychology as a science. And got some pretty interesting things. But this was one of the winning students about Bandura, and they had to write a little mini essay to go along with that. We're doing online modules. We've recently gotten funding to do this. So we have one module, actually 2, on biological bases of behavior. We just filmed one recently on research methods in statistics. And we're going to put these online for teachers to access. We do invited speakers at the APA convention. So every year we sponsor 5 hours of programming for high school teachers. And part of that is we want high school teachers to identify themselves as psychology teachers and want to come to the APA convention to learn more about psychology. And APA is just this huge event with thousands of sessions. And so really trying to get teachers to attend that. We have a workshop every summer at Clark University, which is up in Worcester, Massachusetts, and is where APA was founded. Lee Gorell, that man, is one of my favorite people, I think, on earth. He is a 1948 Clark alum, and he was one of the people that about 2 years ago, he went up to somebody and said, I really think they should teach psychology in high school. It's just a great idea. I don't know why they're not doing this. And somebody told him, well, actually, they are teaching psychology in high school. And he just got very excited and interested about that, and he's given almost $500,000 to support high school psychology teaching, including the money for this workshop. And so every year, he provides the funding for people to fly to Clark, provides housing and food, and it's a great, very inspiring event that we do every year. We sponsor high school student research, so encouraging students to do research. ISEF is an international science competition that's held every May, and about 1,500 students from around the world, I think it's 60 countries, come and present their research projects. And we give awards out to the best projects in psychology. We do a newsletter, the PTN newsletter my office puts out, and we publish articles about teaching psychology, and book reviews and workshop announcements. And these are more things that we offer for high school teachers. The ones in bold I didn't go over before, but we do classroom posters. Membership outreach is always something. We're always trying to reach more teachers to join the APA. We have a diversity plan that we just did, kind of expressing our interest in diversity. My office has an online psychology laboratory, which actually any of you can go on and do. You can actually go online and conduct research through Opal and compare your results with other people, other students in schools. We have APF grants. The Whitman Journal is not an APA publication, but Walt Whitman High School, which is in Bethesda, Maryland, publishes a journal twice a year only with high school student research. So high school students who are conducting research submit their research papers, and then they're published in the Whitman Journal. And we send it out to all of our high school teacher affiliates, even though, again, it's not an APA publication. We are developing guidelines for preparing high school psychology teachers. It's a draft document right now. We're hoping it'll be approved next year. And it's trying to address the concern that there are people teaching without adequate background or training in psychology. So what this document does, it presents 3 different models for training for a pre-service psychology teacher. 2 of them are giving courses. These are samples of courses that teachers should take. There's a standards-based model that gives what a teacher should be able to do. And we're hoping to really push this out to the state boards of education and to schools of education to help be sure that the people who are teaching psychology have a background, which is expected of other scientific disciplines. And then Ken Weaver, who's the chair of that working group, has done some research in teacher certification. And he found out that there are 27 states that only say that a teacher should have a social studies certification. There's nothing else that a psychology teacher needs to actually do or show in those states. 11 states specifically require a psychology credential, and this is to be able to teach high school psychology. And then 12 states require social studies, but they also offer a type of psychology certification. And if any of you are interested in teaching psychology, you really have to go, the certification requirements differ state to state. So finding out what a state that you would be interested in teaching and what they require to teach psychology would be important. Some current and future considerations for high school psychology, whether or not psychology courses could be offered for science credit. Again, right now it's mostly social studies credit, but could this be a science course? Could students take it and get credit for science in high school? National board certification is something that the TOPS committee has been interested in for years. If a teacher is nationally board certified, they typically get a pay increase. It's a pretty prestigious certification. And so there isn't one right now for psychology, and it's something that we'd like to see happen. We're conducting right now a national survey of high school psychology teachers, trying to find out who's out there, who's teaching, what's their background, and what do they need. And then again, there's this APA public education campaign to be teaching people about what psychology is, and we think that high school teachers can play an important role in that campaign. And then if you're interested in teaching psychology, again, you should go to either the School of Education here or to a state Department of Education to find out what the certification requirements are. You'll most likely need a secondary education certification to teach either social studies or science. Most psychology teachers teach multiple subjects, so we're not only teaching psychology, but maybe they're teaching biology and psychology, or again, history and psychology. You may need a separate psychology certification, again, which differs state to state. And then there are alternative routes to certification, and this is a website where it lists the certification requirements for all 50 states. And I have a handout up here about teaching psychology as a possible career, so if anyone's interested, you're welcome to pick that up. And any questions about that before I move on to careers? About high school psychology or potential interest in teaching it?
I hate to ask this, but what's the average income of a high school psychology teacher?
I don't know that. I'm off the top of my head. I could guess something, but I don't want to put an estimate out. But I think the article that I have may have something in there about that. So next part of the talk is some information about general careers in psychology. And as a disclaimer, this isn't the area that I work in. I do work in the Education Directorate, but I kind of combed different APA websites and went online through APA to find out some information to share with you. And I have copies of some of these articles that are mentioned here. One article was about just general tips on how to find a job with an undergraduate degree. And I know some of this makes sense, but plan early, talk to your college advisor now, and assess yourself, find out what you're interested in, what you like doing, what your minimum salary is that you'd want to be making. I read in one of the documents that we were working on that people are happiest in their careers when there's a fit between their personality and then the job that they're doing, job characteristics. So think what you enjoy doing, what you want to be doing, and then thinking about what careers match that. Capitalizing on connections, networking, reaching out to, again, professors, friends, jobs that you might be interested in. Looking beyond internet job postings, so going to actually visiting places maybe that you'd want to work, or looking in newspapers, going to the actual websites. And then taking advantage of campus services, and that's both now while you're in school and when you leave school. The careers office, I think, is really interested in helping alumni, so really making use of that. Some growth careers in psychology, and these are mainly careers that require a PhD in psychology. But I think that for all of these different areas, they're equivalents if you're not interested in pursuing a master's or a doctorate. I think the general areas are something to keep in mind that there could be career opportunities in. You can see program evaluation, working with older adults, aiding soldiers, veterans, and families. The Veterans Affairs Department has many jobs. Homeland Security, the Homeland Security office within in Washington, government service, workplace applications is really IO psychology, and then more practice-based growth areas. The Bureau of Labor Statistics also had some information about areas that are expected to grow in psychology. And again, this is really more for doctorate level work. Clinical, counseling, health, school psychology, that's expected to grow with interest in school and bullying. IO psychology, I believe that's expected to grow 26% between now and 2018. So really a place that they're expecting a lot of growth. Huge need for psychologist abilities in applied research settings, and then survey and market research, if you're interested in that. And then there are going to be a lot of government employees retiring over the next coming years, so openings in the government, both at state and federal levels. Payscale.com was something I found that was referenced in an APA article, so I went online and found this. chart of the most popular jobs for psychology majors. It did note that they surveyed people only with bachelor's degrees, so not people who had gone on to further to either a master's or a doctorate. And they also noted that given how many jobs there are, that some of these might actually be a very small percentage. But of the people that they surveyed, these were the most popular jobs. And you can see the median pay range is down here. So clinical research coordinator looks like a higher pay. And then mental health counselors, substance abuse, and child, family, or school social workers. These are some APA resources that talk about careers. A couple of years ago, there was a task force on quantitative psychology that was addressing a lack of people who are pursuing doctorates in quantitative psychology. And this task force really saw that as a problem, that there was a gap in this one field. And so there's an APA report about quantitative psychology and trying to attract more students to pursue that field. The APA Science Directorate, and I will make these slides available to Dr. Berry after this. I'm sorry, I should have said that earlier. So you'll be sure to get all these URLs and names of places. The APA Science Directorate has about, I think, 40, 50 different interesting careers in psychology, and those are all non-academic careers. And you can go online and really read these little snapshots about what people are doing in different areas. There's a forensic psychologist at the FBI, an NCAA researcher, I think a federal transportation officer. So all these different jobs that aren't academic jobs, but that psychologists are doing. The Center for Workforce Studies has a number of different reports that you can access. One report was about what can I do with a degree in psychology. It includes salary information, a survey of the APA members, so what the APA membership looks like in terms of education and where they're working and what they're doing. Just many different reports that you can find and access online about career options. The APA Office on Aging also has a lot of information about jobs in the aging field, which as the population, I think, above the age of 65 just continues to expand, there's going to be lots of opportunities for people to work in geropsychology. And I have two brochures here from the Office on Aging about different jobs in geropsychology. And the one resource, this one, on the inside lists many different resources and groups and opportunities that you can consider. So if working with the elderly is something that you're interested in, I think there's a real need and a lot of growth that will happen in geropsychology in the next couple of years. APA has a new careers brochure coming out. We were hoping that it might be done and I could take copies here, but it's probably going to be done over the next couple of weeks. And I'll be sure to send copies to you. That's a new brochure that talks about subfields, job outlook, has overviews of a number of different specific careers, educational issues, and resources. And then this is the APA Careers website. Not extremely aimed at undergraduate students. It's really more aimed at doctorate level psychologists. But there is some information at this website that I think is applicable to undergraduate students. Building your resume or questions to ask in an interview. And then APA has a number of publications about career opportunities. I have the first two books that are listed there, I have copies of, and I'll leave with the department. And I really like the Landrum book, Finding Jobs with the Psychology Bachelor's Degree. It's just nice, it's like 100 pages long and has stories from people who have bachelor's degrees and what they've done with their careers. And it's a nice book about just different career options. And in talking about careers, you can also consider working at APA. It's really a great place to work. You work with psychology all day long. You can intern at APA, and then there are, of course, job listings. And that's a specific list to the Careers at APA site. But I've loved working there for, again, it's been almost 8 years. And you work with psychology all day long. And again, you can do that directly from college if you're interested. So maybe just something to consider. I have a couple of just long lists of APA resources for undergraduate students. Our website, of course, would encourage everyone to go to the website. We have, cutting edge news and research and what's going on in the field. You can join APA as a student affiliate, and I have membership applications. It's $35 a year, and then $55 if you join APAGS, which is the graduate student group. But undergraduate students can join APAGS. GradPsych is the APA newsletter for graduate students, all about graduate study in psychology. The Summer Science Fellowship is offered by the APA Science Directorate, and it's for students who will be seniors. So the summer before your senior year. And it's a 6-week kind of intensive research experience. And the information for next year's program isn't online yet, but I think it will be posted soon. The APA convention is a great opportunity. It's in Orlando next year. Pretty sure undergraduate students can go for about $70. And it's all psychology, again, thousands of psychology sessions. It's a very fun event. My favorite convention memory was standing in front of Albert Bandura. We were getting lunch together. And just a great opportunity to see psychologists. And APA is in Honolulu in 2013. Just more resources, division, social media. APA is on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Scholarships, books for students. And just a last slide about graduate school, some different APA resources about getting into graduate school, graduate study in psychology, and again, different opportunities through APA. And I am happy to answer any questions about any of these resources or working at APA or any